Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm working on a PhD in amphizoology with Exeter University. My research focuses on cat-human relations and discourses surrounding free-roaming urban cats. Today, I'm going to talk about a chapter of my PhD thesis that focuses on the so-called indoor-outdoor cat debate from the perspective of cat guardians. One question I am not tackling is whether cats are indeed better off being confined to the home or garden, or if they have a need and or right to roam freely. Of course, I'm happy to provide a convoluted response from a personal perspective, but my research seeks to understand the discourses surrounding free-roaming cats and how these are shaped by and affect cat-human relations. And today I'm going to focus on cat guardianship and the different ways humans relate to cats. Historically, cats have retained a high degree of autonomy regarding their reproduction, and their status as a fully domesticated species is sometimes contested, especially as many cats can not only survive, but often thrive while living independently from humans. And in some parts of the world, cats do pose a threat to biodiversity. In suburban neighbourhoods, roaming cats are considered by some a nuisance, and free-living cats are sometimes pitted for their perceived homelessness. But the assumption that all cats need or would be better off living as part of a human household may not hold true for many unowned adult cats. So I use the term free living to refer to any cat who does not belong to a human household. And that could be a freeborn cat that has never been socialized to humans, or a stray or abandoned pet. Free roaming includes both free living cats and companion animals who go out for at least part of the day or night. The relatively recent phenomenon of the indoor-only cat is a response to various dangers, especially traffic related, as well as concerns about cats killing wildlife. And I include cats who have access to enclosed gardens or are taken out on walks on a leash in this category. The research questions I address in my thesis ask, what are the various discourses surrounding free roaming or free living cats? How do prominent points of contention relate to wider social discourses, such as those concerned with cat welfare, biopolitics, animal agency, and wildlife? And how do cats influence their humans and co-create meaning within the cat-human relationship? The final question is addressed via case analysis, which I won't talk about today. Today, I will talk about the thematic discourse analysis I took to analyze comments responding to media articles about cats. And last year, I used these same data sets to examine how free-living cats are reported in the media and whether the dominant conservationist discourse is creating a moral panic over free-roaming cats. Today, I'm going to focus on discourses surrounding the so-called indoor-outdoor cat debate from the perspective of feline welfare or well-being. So I collected comments responding to 7 different news articles, magazine pieces, and a YouTube video. These were chosen to obtain a variety of responses from both cat guardians and those not overly attached to cats. For example, the YouTube video by Jackson Galaxy discussed his take on whether you should consider keeping your cats inside. Galaxy's fan base of cat lovers ensured a wealth of reactions and responses from cat guardians around the world. And they reacted both positively and negatively to him favouring indoor cats. The BBC and Daily Mail news articles provided a means to sample some reactions from individuals who were less emotionally attached to cats, and those concerned about cats predating on wildlife, or generally people who are not fond of cats. And what is really interesting is the majority of comments are not discussing the article's content, really, but rather they're using it as a platform to complain about predation and the perceived nuisance behaviours of neighbourhood cats. And in response to that, there's a defence of the cat's right to roam. So overall, this data consisted of just under 2,500 comments responding to the main article or sub-comments, and sub-comments are those responding to other comments rather than the original content. The many comments contained information that went beyond the scope of my thesis and were coded as off-topic, and they've been put to one side. This left a remainder of around 1,600 comments, which were assigned to one of 3 thematic groups that comprise key chapters of my PhD thesis. Group 2 are comments related to concerns about wildlife predation, which I talked about at this symposium last year. Then Group 3 are concerned with neighbourhood cats and cats in the community. Today, I'm going to talk about Group 1, which addresses the indoor-outdoor debate from a cat welfare perspective. This is the largest group, containing over 900 comments and sub-comments. And these were subsequently thematically coded for qualitative analysis. Now, I realize I just told you I'm doing a qualitative analysis, and now I'm showing you a quantitative graph. However, a large number of comments in this grouping could be coded as either in favor or favoring keeping cats safely indoors, or viewing roaming as the ideal scenario. And I think this is useful to show before we look at the nuances and themes that emerge from more qualitative analysis. So overall, from a cat well-being perspective, just over half of the comments indicated a preference favoring confinement of companion animal cats. However, there was some acknowledgement that, at least from the cat welfare perspective, it's not always black and white, or green and orange as shown here. And many conceded that there are exceptions, which are shown here, shown as grey on this graph. And this included a recognition that location, circumstances, and indeed the cats themselves needed to be factored into any decisions. So several quantitative studies on attitudes towards free-roaming cats have been conducted, with attitudes shown to vary both within and between communities. However, there seems to be national trends towards either favouring indoor or outdoor cats. And the 2 largest transnational studies were conducted by Hall et al. In 2016 and Foreman-Worsley et al., which was published last year. And the practice of keeping cats indoors is more common amongst guardians in the US than in Australia. And this is despite the Australian government's stance on free-living cats and the implementation of cat curfews and regional bans on keeping cats. In the UK, cat guardians are more likely to insist their cats need to be able to roam outside than their American or indeed Australian counterparts. And my analysis supported these generalizations. For example, statements such as, in the UK, cats generally go outside unless they are sick. Statements such as this were common. And I refrain from making quantitative statements in this respect, in part because not all platforms that I got my data from provided demographic information on the commenter's location, but mostly because I'm really more interested in the underlying reasons behind how humans relate to their cats. One key theme is actual and perceived dangers and judgment of other guardians for putting their cats at risk. Perceived outdoor dangers included traffic, wild predators, obviously depending on their location, dogs, or malicious humans. And while perceived risk might not necessarily always correlate with actual risk, there was no short supply of tragic stories that were given to explain why people now keep their cats inside. And I coded these sometimes rather graphic stories as learned the hard way. And these represent an element of those who are adamant that cats should not go outside unaccompanied. There's also a strong conviction that cats need to roam and that keeping them inside is cruel, despite any risk. And there were crawler comments telling guardians it was their fault that their cat was killed because they did not care enough to keep their cat inside. However, shown here are some typical examples of judgments cat guardians face when trying to do what they think is best with their cat. For example, my family always says I'm mean for not letting my cats outside, but I want him to live a long life. Or simply saying, I can't stand people that force their cats to stay inside. Another writes, I have friends that don't let their cats outside who judge me for letting mine out. At the end of the day, I know my cat and I know the area. And then this sub-comment states, I think you're a crappy cat owner for letting your cat outside. Although wildlife is a reason many cat guardians say they reluctantly restrict their cats roaming, I'm putting the whole cat predation dimension to one side for this paper, to focus on strong opinions, judgments, and shaming going on amongst cat guardians about what they consider is best for cats. And there remains two prominent themes within the discourses, namely that it's not safe for cats to go outside unaccompanied. And then on the other side, the notion that confining cats is a form of abuse. And indeed, the prison analogy was used quite a lot. So some scholars have attempted to address the question of a cat's right to roam, based on a hedonistic account of animal welfare, of animal well-being, sorry. Abate 2020 made a philosophical argument that cat guardians have a moral duty to provide their feline companions the opportunity to roam outside. Fisher 2020 contests this argument by comparing feline companions to a small child who loves to wander unaccompanied, pointing out that as a parent, you are accountable for both the child's safety and any damage they might cause to others. However, this argument depends on the assumption that companion cats, like small children, are dependents and that we have a moral duty to protect and police them. And many people do view cats this way. For example, this comment responds to the argument that cats are happy roaming with, hey, you don't put your toddler outside, they're happier, and who cares how safe they are? Others credit cats with the survival skills of an adult animal. This comment on the right points out, my cats don't just sit in the middle of the road waiting to get run over. And another comparison to children makes the opposite point to the one on the left, saying, if I let my children live inside to keep them safe from evil people, diseases, and cars, people would call me cruel. So to counter this notion of cats as children or as fur babies, there's an alternative perception of cats as wild or wild-like animals, and the sentiment that nobody owns a cat. And amongst the comments are examples of cats who exerted agency and guardians who were listening to and accommodating their cats' needs and desires. For example, I had every intention of keeping both my cats indoors. Only when I got them, only one day it seemed all they ever wanted to do was to go outside. And so they let their cats go outside. And this comment represents the middle ground where guardians balance the desire to protect their cats against recognizing a need to respect their agency and their desire to go out. However, as I mentioned earlier, guardians are criticized from both sides for either keeping their cats inside or letting them roam. So how can humans who say they care about cats be so at odds about what is best for cats and what constitutes a good cat guardian? Companion animal guardians often use narratives akin to the parent-child bond to describe their relationships with their companion animals. For example, Owen and Grauerholtz 2019. However, there are many approaches to raising a human child and different ideas about what constitutes a good or bad parenting. How human personality affects the nature of care provided to dependents has been well established in the psychology literature surrounding parent-child relationships. And recently, this has been extended to multi-species relationships. Taking cat guardianship as an exemplar, Finke et al. 2019 used the Big Five inventory to assess agreeableness, conscientiousness, extrovertism, neuroticism, and openness in cat guardians, and extended the theory of pet parenting styles. So neuroticism was shown to be associated with an increased likelihood of guardians permitting their cats, a decreased likelihood of guardians permitting their cats to roam unaccompanied. And higher extrovertism scores were associated with the opposite trend. And conscientiousness in the human was associated with the cat displaying more gregarious behavioral styles, which perhaps explains why some people describe their cats as being aloof and others as being loving and playful. So focusing on actually on cat predation habits, Crowley et al. Published typologies of cat guardians, which classified them as either concerned protectors who are focused on cat safety, freedom defenders who prioritize cat independence, tolerant guardians who believe outdoor access is important for cats, but dislike their hunting habits. Conscientious caretakers feel some responsibility for managing their cat's hunting, and then laissez-faire landlords were largely unaware of issues surrounding roaming. So basically, they just believe cats should do what they like. So both these studies focused on those identifying as cat guardians. However, Zito et al. 2015 found caretakers of free living or neighbourhood cats often do not perceive themselves as cat guardians, despite their heavy investment in a particular cat or cat's welfare. And from my data, it seems that some who live with a cat describe the relationship more of a mutual friendship. For example, commenters sometimes told stories of how a cat just showed up one day, and now this cat eats her food and sleeps on their sofa. The cats are talked about in a variety of different ways, such as helpless dependents, to be protected and nurtured, much like very small children, or as friends or perhaps adult family members whose agency to come and go needs to be respected, or somewhere in between, perhaps like teenage minors who need a degree of freedom and trust, but are expected to come home at night. And this is great if the cat and the guardian are on the same page. For example, some cats, especially pedigree breeds, who tend to need help maintaining healthy coats, or whose traits render them less able to survive outside, would be better off being kept inside and mothered. Conversely, an unsocialized, healthy, free-living cat will generally not take kindly to being rescued and kept indoors. And much of the discourse in my data set concerned what was believed to be best for cats. However, just like humans, cats have very different needs and desires. And one thing that really was somewhat lacking in the comments was an acknowledgement of cats as individuals. And cats and circumstances can vary widely. Some comments did share stories of cats asserting their agency and even changing the minds of their guardians. And in my case studies, I drill down more into the intersubjectivity of cat-human relations, But what is reassuring is how themes that emerge from the discourse analysis are present in my case study interviews, and are being used to further my analysis of these. Of course, the discourses surrounding free roaming cats is not only about cat guardians wanting to do what's best for their cat. This pictogram attempts to illustrate some of the different variables that may affect different cats. And there are many other issues, such as predation of wildlife by cats, free-living cats who have never been socialized to humans, disputes over free-roaming neighborhood cats, for example, defecating on lawns or just existing. And these I'm addressing in other chapters of my thesis, with a view to understand some of the diverse and convoluted ways people think about and engage with cats. Because while it is worthwhile to attempt to answer the question of whether cats have a right to roam from a moralistic or philosophical perspective, I find the real world discourses much more fascinating. And understanding the different beliefs and concerns of cat guardians is key to rehoming shelter cats in suitable homes, or helping resolve relationship problems between guardians and their cats. And acknowledging how different guardians inherently parent their companion animals could also inform the development of effective educational materials regarding enrichment for indoor cats, or indeed how to reduce cat predation and mitigate some of the risks associated with roaming. And so thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take questions, criticisms, or suggestions. And you're very welcome to contact me by email, and check out my webpage to learn more about my research. Thank you.